He has been mobilizing people from the age of 10. By 16, he was a known rebel with an acute political mind and tongue. He embraced communism and radicalism with the same vigor. Then, the University of the West Indies turned him into a lawyer. The youth of St. Lucia turned him into a president. The St. Lucia Labour Party turned him into a candidate, and Dr. Kenny Anthony turned him into a deputy prime minister. He got caught up in one of the biggest political scandals in St. Lucia's history. Then, he graduated to being a judge and eventually acting Chief Justice. He has never shared his undiluted life story with any journalist until now. Untold Stories presents Justice Mario Michel, the Virtuous Rebel.
Mario, what time is it so later?
10 o'clock. Check it. Yeah.
Where Mario?
You.
What you saying there?
See if you.
You going to the game later, man?
Yeah, but you know we go beach all though. Haha. That. You know that. Yeah, it's gonna be nice. Hot. Check it. You. What's up? Alright. Your mother give you permission to go to the game?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Go be. Yeah, you know that. Check it. Hey, babe, I'm not making too much noise. Or fix up your desk before we come.
Yeah, somewhere in Form 1 apparently had this bright idea. Why don't I organize these competitions, row A versus row B versus row C? At the end, we would pick a class team, and the Form 1R8, for instance, would play against 1R9 and 1R7. So you had a row champion and a class champion. And there were these trophies at MNCs with a little trophy with somebody with a football, and they were like 50 cents. And for the small trophy was 50 cents. The grand one was $1, just a little bigger in size. So yes, I organized these competitions. The winner of the row got the grand 50-cent trophy, and the winner of the class competition, the inter-class competition, got the bigger trophy. And it was quite a big thing, you know. I mean, boys would be there cheering on.
And you were how old at the time?
10 and 11, and continued up until I was 12 in Form 2.
You were mobilizing people from 10 years old?
There was much more than that, actually. In Form 2, I formed an organization called the Black Buddy Boys. Now, don't ask me where the name come from. I'm not quite sure how we ended up with that name. But it was a grand total of 5 of us. Formed this organization, Black Buddy Boys. We used to, like, my brother Costello had a good library. All the Black American authors and speakers, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Stokely Carmichael and the Soledad Brothers and Angela Davis. My brother had all of these books. So one of the main activities of the Black Buddy Boys is that once, twice, 3 times a week after school, we would go by the cliff and I would read for them, you know, about racial discrimination in the U.S. and what's happening here and what's happening there. So we were essentially a Black Power organization. Yeah.
In Form 2?
In Form 2, yes. And every Friday, each member had to contribute 10 cents. And we banked a little ironically at the one American bank there was in St. Lucia, Chase Manhattan Bank. I don't think we saw any contradiction at the time in terms of the struggle we had and why we shouldn't be banking at Chase Manhattan. But that's where we had our account, and every Friday, the bank used to close at 5 o'clock on a Friday. So we would all march down to Chase Manhattan Bank and put in hopefully our 50 cents, 10 cents from each of 5 members. After about 2 years or so, we decided, look, we have to do something with that money. We just had a set of money in the bank and we had to find something to do with it. But it wasn't enough to buy all the ammunition we needed for the revolution. So we decided, well, let's have a party instead. So we withdrew the entire $43 we had at the bank and had a grand party.
What was SMC like for you?
I did well. I read a lot. Not necessarily the geography books and the history books, but, you know, Martin Luther King and so on, and authors like that. And as I became older, I started to read some more challenging stuff, international literature, you know, from the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx to a range of other books. So while my classmates were kind of still reading Enid Blyton, you know, and Hardy Boys and so on, I had kind of moved way beyond that. So I was not the typical student. I did things that maybe a lot of students in my stage were not into at all. I also did things like, for instance, okay, I don't know if your time they used to have these school outings where the class or the school went out to an outing to View Fort and that sort of thing. That was quite popular in my time at St. Mary's, and you know, teachers would organize that. So I would organize one.
You?
Yes.
As a student?
Yes, hire a bus. The school buses at that time, or the buses at that time were trucks with a thing built at the back with the seats. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I hired a bus and organized a school outing to Soufriere and visit the copper manufacturers at the time, the sulfur springs and so on. You know, all done by little 14, 15-year-old boy at St. Mary's College at the time. I think parents naturally assumed that the teachers were involved. But they weren't.
Black empowerment and Martin Luther King. It's very educational and we learn a lot about our culture. So there, Joshua.
In the 1970s, mid-70s, the debate sparks up on independence because our neighbors are becoming independent. St. Lucia is making strides towards, and you are in Form 4, Form 5. What is your opinion on St. Lucia's path to sovereignty?
At the time, my earliest involvement, 74, 75, I remember when the whole debate started. Mr. Mondesi, of blessed memory, organized talk with myself, Errol Mata, one to speak on, okay, Errol was to speak on the why independence and I to speak on why not independent.
And this is why St. Michel should gain its independence.
Well, on the contrary, we have a very great resource. I think we should stay as a British colony.
I was called upon to speak on why not independence. And did so, and apparently did so pretty well. And for a while, you kind of become perceived as the why not independence person. And I found myself speaking at a lot of panel discussions, including SLTV at the time and RSL. Whenever there was somebody to represent students or represent young people, for some reason I got chosen very often for these things. And I think at the beginning it would have appeared that I had almost an anti-independence orientation. But it's almost like you started there because I was asked to do the why not, and I was in a why not mode for a while. As I advanced in years, though, I mean, and the concept of independence of your nation comes before you. Like, of course, I mean, we must get independence from England and so on. So the view changed, or the apparent trajectory of your opinion and how you saw things changed as I went into late teens. by 1978, I was at the 11th World Festival of Youth and Students in Cuba, where, the exact opposite of any kind of message of anti-independence or not. I mean, a central call of a lot of the participants there was independence for their countries. So by that time, of course, I have a totally different orientation. Probably, though, my most important role at A-level came when Mrs. Bourne was appointed school principal. A-level had had a history of instability. The school was formed in 1974. There was the Mon Secondary School. We basically established from it the A-level college where students went to Form 6. So that instead of going to Form 6 at St. Mary's College or St. Joseph's Convent, you went to the A-level college. You needed five O-levels to get there. But yes, there was no longer Form 6 in convent or college. So we you get to A-level because you're one of the brighter ones who get 5 subjects. The guys who were not as good as you didn't get to A-level, they went to work. And they were working, so they had money, they went to feds, they drank, they limed. And you who were supposed to be the brighter one, you're going to school, you have your uniform, you have to go home afterwards and do your homework and study. So it was always a very unstable situation. The school administration treated the students like, okay, the boys from St. Mary's College and the girls from St. Joseph's Convent who were now in Form 6. But we saw ourselves, we're big people, we left school already. Our friends who didn't do as good as us, they're working at the bank and they're teaching and they're doing all kinds of things. They have cars, they're going to feds, they have girlfriends. And you want to tell me that do better than them, that I must wear my uniform and be home by 3 o'clock and do my homework. And so it was a very, very volatile kind of situation. A-level college never had a graduation. Every year was a boycott for something or the other. And in my time, in my 2 years there were 4 different principals, just for one reason or the other. And when things got really out of whack, Mrs. Bourne, who was then education officer for secondary schools, was sent in to rescue A-level because things not going well. And Mrs. Bourne, in what was probably the master stroke, first day, Mrs. Bourne came. Somebody comes to, the principal wants to see you. I remember students like, but the lady just got you in trouble already. But I went to see Mrs. Boyle and she told me how much she's heard about me, so. And I joke, I trust it's all been good. And then, told me about a lot of things that have been said, and it seems like I'm a bright boy and a leader among students, and she wants me to work with her. And she started talking about there never was a graduation, there was this and that, and yes, I want you to be the intermediary between the student body and me as principal. Let's make things happen at A-level. And the lady was a class act. After a while, the students started to joke me that you know that Mrs. Bourne have you. But yeah, we almost planned the graduation. And she said, okay, Mario, you'll do what you'll want as a student body, whether you'll want to graduate in gowns or school uniform, whether you'll want this, what music you'll want. You choose your guest speaker, choose your valedictorian. One condition, do not choose somebody as guest speaker whom you know would be a problem. And she actually said, like George Adler. And she said, choose anybody for the valedictorian except you.
Did you have a standoff with any other principal?
Yes.
You say that so casually. You used to be in trouble, boy.
Yeah, Mrs. Bourne, that wasn't a standoff. That was the principal who preceded her.
Tell us about the standoff.
He said he expelled me, actually. There were issues about me. At that time, I was a regular as I said earlier, on panel discussions and expressing sometimes strong views, usually not particularly favorable to the government. And there was a thing like, I'll just have this young boy just saying what he wants, criticizing the government, doing whatever, and get this boy under control. And I think, at least one principal tried to do that, and it wasn't working. It put me on probation. It was announced on the radio, all upper six students asked to come to the school to register on Monday or whatever. So like all of the students, I'm there. And he comes and he says, "What are you doing here?" "Well, I came to register." He says, no, you're on probation. Probation is registered on the first day of school. Okay, it's the first time I'm hearing that. And he says, "And you must leave the compound now." Oh. And he started to get worked up. And "If you don't leave, I shall expel you." Didn't leave, but you are expelled.
I have never been a controversial writer journalist.
What did the Labour Party promise to you? That if they got in, you would become a senator?
Being Rick Wayne, I got fired from the Senate by the Labour Party.
You were a troublemaker. You decided that you were going to trade that pen for a red t-shirt and a star.
Mario is the guy who was behind getting rid of all three shadows. Trading was the closest thing to God. Those were wild days. There's no such thing as neutral. That's a lot. That's a show by itself. Had I stayed in St. Lucia, I would have taken it to jail.
Were you involved in a pornography ring at that time?
The only pornography ring I know is on Compton's wedding finger.
You were trusted by the public, hated by politicians, and then you took your pen and decided, I'm finished yet. Many people have asked, was Rick Wayne in a relationship with this man?
This guy was a horny guy. He got a big man.
Looking to take your projects to the next level? Caribbean Levels Limited has just what you need. Introducing our must-haves: standard stirrups, sleek ridge caps, and the ultra-tough Permacard Gen 3 roofing sheets. And guess what? You can shop it all online at CaribbeanLevelsLimited.com. Got questions? Our live chat has answers right at your fingertips. Don't wait. Visit our site today and discover why Caribbean Levels Limited continues to lead the way in innovation. Caribbean Levels Limited. We've got you covered. Guaranteed.
But Mario Michel, by 15, 16 years old, you were garnering a reputation as the rebel, as a troublemaker. From Ravin Chabot to St. Mary's College, now at the A-level college, every time your name was associated, it was with radicalism, it was with anti-establishment talk, and you filled the airwaves with that, and you started having a legion of followers with that sort of mindset. Why?
I don't know. Some people try to be something. I don't recall ever trying to be something. I was me. I liked doing things. I liked making things happen. And sometimes, what I managed to make sometimes was trouble.
But at 17 years old, you were the little mister at John Compton meetings, in front of the stage, heckling.
Yeah, that was okay. I mean, in the context of 1976, 77, the whole country was in a very rebellious mood, very much in uproar.
All of us who live in St. Lucia know that for several years now, since we indicated that it was the government's intention to seek independence for St. Lucia, certain elements in our society who have been very vocal have been trying to frustrate or at least to delay St. Lucia's March to Freedom.
George Odlum, Peter Josie, they were the powerful voices that carried a lot of young people with them.
I call them the two T's in trouble, problems and mayhem. What influence did problems and mayhem have on your development, your thinking, your anti-systemic thinking at the time?
Not a lot. I mean, George Odlum was articulate, he was charismatic, and he appeared to represent something. And it was easy as a young person with admiration for those kinds of qualities. I mean, George Odlum developed almost a cult following. I was never in any way part of that. I mean, I liked to hear him speak. I liked certain things about him. I always had a degree of uneasiness, which became more and more pronounced as the years went by, till by early 80s thereabout, my opinion of him had altered drastically in terms of what I thought of him after a while, and that probably remained till his funeral.
Why law, Mario Michel?
When I first went to UE, I started off in history and economics, my two favorite subjects, and I was looking at doing a degree in history and economics. And I remember my brother Costello, Mario, at the end of all that, what do you think you're going to be? A lawyer, right? I'd say, go and do law. You know, like, go do your law. I mean, transfer to law faculty and forget about all this history and economics and what professor this one say and professor that one say and your natural attributes and, why you did so well in history and did so well in that. You're not going to be any historian. You're not going to be any economist. You're going to be a lawyer. Okay? So get it over with. And yeah, so I did then transfer to law faculty and did my 3 years in law faculty and my 2 years in law school. And yeah, I'm still a lawyer. 47 years later.
Friends may try to hurt us.
The plan was that Gary was going to leave the country on Monday midday. And the instructions that were being left behind was that we should be liquidated. That left us in a position where we had to choose whether to sit and wait for liquidation or whether we should move on the offensive. What we did was that from our positions in hiding, the decision was taken that the next morning we should, at this point in the name of the people, move to seize power.
Mario Michel then goes on to Grenada for one of these forums where Maurice Bishop is presenting.
Yeah.
Tell me about that first meeting with Maurice. He comes up to you and he pats you on the back.
Well, Maurice is a fantastic personality, great speaker, fantastic personality.
We have to struggle as people who are being destabilized every day to get people out there to understand the really devastating effects of propaganda. According to the Bureau, it had received complaints about mass...
Tell me about that first meeting.
I don't know, maybe just in awe almost. I mean, as much as I've always been a confident person and I was never into hero worship kind of thing. But meeting Maurice Bishop, there was something special about it. One felt a certain aura of that you were in the midst of greatness.
This was a punctuation mark for you because you had, in 1978, gone to Cuba. Mm-hmm. You were radicalized in your thinking. You were not a communist hater. You were sympathetic to them. You met Maurice, and Maurice's style of governance, taking power by force. What were your sentiments at the time on that, considering you were in a democratic country? And also the fact that you had traveled there, met the man, at a time when the United States, the Caribbean, and especially our John Compton, was fearful that people like you would be indoctrinated by people like Maurice Bishop and bring your revolutionary thoughts to St. Lucia. At the time, what were your thoughts on that style of governance?
Well, I don't know if, you could call what happened in Grenada a style of governance. There were lots of things happening in Grenada. Eric Gary was an autocratic leader he established what you call the Mongoose Gang in Grenada. There was basically thugs who were prepared to beat up their opponents, and they beat up Maurice Bishop quite badly one time. They allegedly also killed his father. Gary was no choir boy. And he was prepared to use any means necessary to keep himself in office. And Maurice Bishop and the members of the New Jewel movement, his party, were convinced that Gary was leaving you with no choice in terms of getting him out of power by taking him out of power, because whatever the machinery of state was going to be used to entrench him permanently in the politics of Grenada. So that was basically what the New Jewel movement was saying, that in order to get Gary out, you needed to take him out. And yes, in 1979, at a time when Gary was off island and there were lots of things about what instructions he had left behind, guys decided this was their moment, and they took power in what was described as a bloodless coup.
The criminal dictator Eric M. Gary has been overthrown.
Only 2 people were killed during the revolt. The Mongoose Gang was detained in prison. None were executed. Not even the men who killed Rupert Bishop were harmed.
The capture of the radio station and everything else fell.
Yes, and basically that's what happened. And things just, this is, I heard, this is the voice of Maurice Bishop.
The criminal dictator Eric M. Gary has been overthrown.
When we call on the radio and ask the people to come out and support the radio station, well, people just leave their jobs, walk off their jobs, and come to get armed.
The entire army has surrendered. And all the
Police officers are asked to fly the white flag put up their white flag at the police stations, so that the People's Revolutionary Army would recognize them not as combatants and so on. Yes, and Maurice was on the radio from 4 o'clock in the morning on March 13th until. I think it would be too mild to say that I had no problems with it. I thought it was the right thing to do. And in terms of how did St. Lucia fit into that, I don't know that St. Lucia was at a stage where one thought, that John Compton, the only way to take John Compton out of power is by a coup, or there was never no Mongoose Gang kind of thing. So St. Lucia was not in the Grenada situation to say, well, I support Grenada and therefore let's do that in St. Lucia. I certainly wasn't seeing it that way, but I didn't have a problem with the idea of revolution, with the idea of taking over the governance of the country by armed struggle if necessary.
You could understand why that was resonating in St. Lucia, and even times when Joyce O'Geese was terrified and ran off the radio to allow George Odlum and his guys to take over the radio station. You can understand why the actions of the New Jewel movement has spread to St. Lucia and spread fear in St. Lucia. And more than anything else, the little bright boy from Ravin Chabot, who he was a supporter, he was a believer in people like Maurice Bishop.
And don't forget Fidel Castro.
Fidel Castro. You could understand hero, when Mario is coming back to St. Lucia in 1979, around that time, how uneasy it made the sitting government.
Yeah, but I was not that bad, Yes, I had strong views that I articulated, but you see, there was always a thing about I never generated fear in anybody.
In 1984, Mario Michel is called to the bar. Take me back to that.
I've not had to change brakes. I've not had to change oil.
When you put that on, you don't even have to press your brake anymore.
Myth number one, that this vehicle is not powerful enough because of our hills. I can tell you, I can line up with the best of them, and they won't have the best of me.
And you're hypocritical in that you have batteries to say, hey, I'm not so bad on the environment because I have some batteries as well. As lead technician, your take.
This hybrid and EV thing, the truth is, it can kill you.
And a way for the shipping companies to price gouge. What would you say?
In North America, there are tax credits.
The electricity company in St. Lucia has crippled the industry. What would you say?
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
Let the light guide your way. Yeah. Hold every memory as you go, and every road you take will always lead you home. Oh, it's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
The actual formation of National Youth Council came out of the major activity of the International Youth Year Committee, the national consultation on problems affecting youth. So it was on the program of the IYY committee that activity was organized, which evolved into the first Congress of the National Youth Council, at which activity I was elected president. So in a sense, the rival entity virtually produced what became the National Youth Council, and I, its president.
You had a little Nissan Sunny at the time. That Sunny do mileage, boy.
Oh yes, oh yes. Yeah, that Sunny did a lot of work.
So
if you fought today, Deriso the next day, Canries the day after. Yeah, it did a lot of work.
What were you doing in these communities?
Just mobilizing young people, getting young people to value themselves, see themselves seriously, and not accept, well, that is how it is. That's not how it's supposed to be, and it's not good enough to accept that is how it is. It's not good enough to, that boy, the place youths have to play football in Derry, so it's a little rough area of ground that if you kick and you miss, you might kick your toe on a stone. No, that's not good enough, and it's not that is how it is. That's something you have to work on and change. And so that kind of message of youth empowerment, I mean, some of the language that I spoke, for instance, by describing the National Youth Council as the vehicle to transport the views and voices of young people from the clubhouses to the Houses of Parliament, from the, okay, some of the words might come. But the idea of, yes, it's not okay to just sit and content yourself with, yeah, that's how it is. Let's make things happen, and we can do it. We can force the young people of this country to be listened to. And I think we did. And a lot of the things which were part of the discourse back then in the period of mobilization towards the formation of NYC and its eventual formation, a lot of these things found their way in governance. So that, yes, the National Youth Council, it wasn't just, Romana Atlantic would say, no, we're not going to recognize the National Youth Council. But it got a level of recognition in the end, way beyond that which any other National Youth Council that I know of ever got. It's not okay for us to be told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. We have a right to be in the cockpit of the flight to our future, and not just passengers being, driven around here and there by anybody. So these were the messages which were preached and more accepted, and to the point where, young people more and more began to feel that sense of empowerment. When after 4 years I decided, well, okay, I had done 2 terms as president and I could move on from there. By then I felt that the message had been delivered.
The criticism at the time was Mario Michel is using the National Youth Council as a breeding ground for the St. Lucia Labour Party. He was developing a set of comrades, all militant, in red, the Ernest Hilairs of the world, and this man has one intention, to face off with John Compton. Your take?
Well, that was not true, would manifest itself eventually. If, for instance, the line about that National Youth Council being a recruiting ground for Labour Party, the history, or what developed thereafter, showed that was never true. Yes, one can plead guilty to the charge of National Youth Council preparing politicians, preparing people to get involved in political life, but it certainly wasn't the Labour Party. The NYC, during my 4 years in the leadership of the NYC produced Mario Michel as a Labour Party candidate eventually, Ernest Hilaire as a Labour Party candidate eventually, Marius Wilson as a UWP candidate, Edward Innocent as a UWP candidate. So in my period as president, 4 persons emerged as political, well, not just candidates, but parliamentarians, and 2 happened to be the SLP and 2 the UWP. There were several other persons along the way, people like Ricky Alexander, who ran the suffrage seat for the UWP and so on. These persons came onto the executive after my time, but yes, they did come out of NYC. So yes, there was a thing of that there was, if you like, if there was an indoctrination, it was an indoctrination about why young people must get involved, why that parliament must look like us. When at the time National Youth Council was formed in 1985, just take that moment, April 1985, there was not a single person sitting in the cabinet room who was under 40. You can go around, not one single person. By the time I came into cabinet in May of 1997, half of the cabinet room was under 40. So that was the kind of thing that one made happen over time. So that it was no longer, when you're under 40, you're not a child. The kind of perception, young people, you're not ready for that. You are about the future, and the future is never coming. So basically we changed that dialogue, we changed that narrative.
I will make one promise, and one promise only, that I will give to the constituency of Gros Islet the best representation which is possible within the parameters of the limited resources available to us.
Why Gros Islet?
Gros Islet was the seat that became open as a result of the resignation of Julian Hunt. Not just the candidate for Gros Islet, but the parliamentary representative for Gros Islet has announced that he's not running for the party. So we need a candidate to replace him. So that was the urgency of Gros Islet. Then there was the view that in these elections, St. Lucia will go where Gros Islet goes. Or if you want, you could put it the other way. Gros Islet will go where St. Lucia is. So we need to have a winner in Gros Islet. Meanwhile, from my end, Gros Islet had become my home. As of 1987, I got married, I moved to Gros Islet. That's where I've lived for the last 10 years, at the time. This is home. You needed a candidate who one, could replace the incumbent, two, who could attract the attention, the respect, the whatever of a very critical part of the country. And yes, that was the message that was sent, and I believed it, and I bought into it, and I accepted it.
Elective politics in St. Lucia is punctuated by chicken and a lot of spirit of St. Lucia. You were not the handout king, you were not the drinker, you were not the social in the bar, and Gros Islet was, what did Compton call it? The chicken back town.
Chicken back and rum.
Chicken back and rum town. How are you going to win that seat?
Because I believe in people. I believe in people. I believe in myself. I take myself seriously. I take people seriously. I take what I do seriously. And part of it was that I'm going to run the Gros Islet seat, not by deluding people into thinking that I am what I am not. I'm going to present myself. And I was genuine in the position that if what I say to you, if you accept that's what you want, then I'm entitled or I deserve your vote. If not, then vote for somebody else. And I really did mean that. I did not want to become parliamentary representative of Gros Islet under false pretenses.
Of my campaign. So to you, the people of Gros Islet, I say, count on me through thick and thin, a friendship that will never end. When you are weak, I will be strong, helping you to carry on. Call on me, I will be there. Don't be afraid. Please believe me when I say, count on. You can count on me. I thank you.
I had a very good practice. I was, by then, 13 years in practice. By then, if I may say so myself, one of the best regarded lawyers in St. Lucia at the time. I was president of the Bar Association, the youngest person ever to be elected president up until now. Many years later, still the youngest person ever to have been elected president of the Bar, and virtually by acclamation. That was my reputation at the time. I had a good law practice developing, two other lawyers working for me, and so on. And I was quite happy to remain there, including run a seat, run an election that if people didn't, if what I'm selling is not what they want to buy, then good, I'll stay in my practice. And so I made a lot of self-defining statements, for instance, that I know I'm not going to, don't expect me to buy drinks for you or whatever the case may be, because I'm not going to frequent the bars, I'm not going to buy drinks for people. I've chosen to live my life free of alcohol, and I'm not about to not have it and then give it to you. I'm not going to go around with the girls and so on and so on. I've chosen to remain true and faithful to my wife. And, basically these were the sort of messages I preached, and that is who I am. I said, I'm today who I was yesterday and will be tomorrow. A St. Lucian, proud and conscious of the land of my birth, and ready to give to my constituency and my country whatever it is that I have to offer. But I wasn't just saying, these were not just platitudes. They were really what I believed and who I am and what I was. And yes, I was determined to go into the election, tell you who I am, and if you know want that, brother, we good,
So Michel, take me back to election night, 1997. You and your band of brothers. Now 16 of you all are elected. Oh, happy day.
Looking to take your projects to the next level? Caribbean Levels Limited has just what you need. Introducing our must-haves: standard stirrups, sleek ridge caps, and the ultra-tough Provocateur Gen 3 roofing sheets. And guess what? You can shop it all online at CaribbeanLevelsLimited.com. Got questions? Our live chat has answers right at your fingertips. Don't wait. Visit our site today and discover why Caribbean Levels Limited continues to lead the way in innovation. Caribbean Levels Limited, we've got you covered, guaranteed.
If I would have known that you wouldn't be here anymore. I would've made the moments last a little longer. 'Cause now I'm alone, and you're just a memory in my mind. I would've given anything to say goodbye. My big bro, the general. Jay. 21 gun salute, I'll see you soon on the other side. If I would've known, if I would've known, I'd have broke parole and come home sooner. If I would've known.
So Michel, take me back to election night, 1997. You and your band of brothers. Now 16 of you all are elected. Oh, happy day. You, the little boy from Ravin Chabot, now an elected member of. Tell me your plans for constituency and the legion of followers, young followers, who are looking to you to make a difference.
Yeah, election night 1997. I remember that night there was, jubilation, gratitude, relief. But there was also a degree of, some degree of consternation, some degree of worry that, boy, did I really do the right thing? Was it the best thing for me as an individual to uproot myself from where I was, what I was, to be what I'm now going to be, having been elected today as the parliamentary representative of Gros Islet, and I'm the deputy leader of a party that's now going to be in government, and so on. And I start to think of my children. I mean, the life of my 7-year-old daughter and my 2-year-old son will never again be what it might otherwise have been, because I've embarked on that course. So that was election night for me. But it's like the morning after, the job begins.
What the Labour Party has to see itself doing when it attains the seat of government in St. Lucia is to begin to organize the business and machinery of government in a way that is youth sensitive, in a way that recognizes the direct nexus which exists between the present well-being of our young people and the future well-being of our country. This has to be done both by the implementation of a set of specific policies and by the embracing of an overall philosophy which recognizes the importance of the sector of youth and the critical role that this sector must play in the development and realization of our national development goals and objectives, if those goals and objectives are to have any real meaning.
1997, you are elected. First Act of Parliament. Do you remember?
St. Lucia National Youth Council Incorporation Act. Okay. Yes, well, that was something that we had canvassed for from 1985, when the National Youth Council was established, for the recognition at the highest level of the National Youth Council as the voice, the official voice of young people in the country. Of course, the response we got in terms of the call for recognition was the exact opposite from the then Minister for Youth. But by 1997, of course, a lot had changed, and the regard, the respect, the promise to young people, part of it was manifested in the passage of that act as the first act of parliament of the new government. Yes, and
but what did that really mean for young people?
It was very symbolic that The elections were on Sunday. On Monday, a press release was put out by the National Youth Council, basically saying that the National Youth Council was formally established and these are its executive members. That's on Monday. On Tuesday, the Minister of Youth put out a statement that the government of St. Lucia does not recognize the National Youth Council. So the battle lines were drawn from there. And the issue, as it was, at least as it was articulated by the then minister, was recognition of the National Youth Council. The government of St. Lucia does not recognize the National Youth Council. Symbolically, it was extremely important for it to be not just said along the way, but by act of parliament. I don't know there's any other National Youth Council anywhere in the region or elsewhere that there's an act incorporating it. I don't know that that exists anywhere. But it was a deliberate response to, here it was that the minister who is responsible for youth saying, "You don't recognize you." And what, it was 12 years later, that as a first act of the new government of the country is to formally recognize the National Youth Council in the highest possible manner by an act of parliament. So the symbolism of it was, in my view, immense.
A policy direction that was, and still is, fundamentally different to the chaos that passed for government in the 30 preceding years. One of the many sectors identified as requiring this change in direction was education. The Contract of Faith recognized that the education system had seen its fair share of crisis and thus proposed the following. 1. To enact a new Education Act to facilitate the transformation of the education system. And so, in November 1999, the new Education Act was passed in Parliament and assented by the Governor-General, Dame Paulette Louisy, on 4th January 2000.
You came in 1997. Tell us the 3 things, in order of priority, you wanted to accomplish during your first term in office.
First of all, I should say one of my first pronouncements, when I came in as minister, elections were the Friday. On Monday morning, I walked into the office of the Ministry of Education, greeted by the staff, and then called in the heads of department to basically indicate to them from day one where we're going, what this is going to be about from here on. And one of my first statements is that we're going to transform this ministry from the command center of the education system in St. Lucia to the service center. We're not going to give commands and orders. We're going to receive the views and positions and so on of the persons whom we are supposed to serve and carry it out rather than sit here and command who does what, how, and so on. And the other major policy pronouncement is to make the school the central focus of the education system. So it is not about the minister or the ministry or the chief education officer or even the teachers and the parents. It's about the students. That, from here on, will be the central focus of the Ministry of Education. Something, incidentally, a pronouncement, not just making it, but to the extent that we were carrying it out, didn't win me a lot of fans among the teachers, because things used to be said like, all the minister care about is the children. We don't matter to him. All the minister care about is the children. And my answer was not necessarily to flatter. My answer was to say that that's what it is, and that's what it has to be. I don't matter. You don't matter. It's these children that matter.
It is the final session of the 20th century. But rather than signaling the closing of a chapter, it should represent, in the spirit of optimism that characterizes the raison d'etre of the organization, the opening of a new book of opportunity. As the century sets on a world of unrealized ambitions, a new universe of unmatched possibilities is being heralded.
You were Deputy Prime Minister to Kenny Anthony, and Dr. Anthony came in for a lot of criticism and, of course, seconded by you. Some of them were the firing of 3 senators. Where did you stand on that position?
Well, my position that one of the senators should have been First of all, he should never have been a senator, and he should have been fired even before that. And not fired before that, he certainly should have been fired then. It was a senator, the senator who voted against a government resolution. There were two people who abstained, and I had a completely different perspective on abstention as opposed to voting against a measure that is proposed by your government. You're entitled to have whatever view you want, but you're not entitled to take a position. You are there, you are put there by the government in order to promote and support its policies. That's why you are put there. And you are going to oppose it and vote against it together with the opposition and then remain a senator. I mean, if you want to do that, you're entitled to do it, but send your resignation afterwards. But you can't sit there and continue to be a senator. So that was my clear view on it. As I said, I did not think that Rick Wayne should have been a senator in the first place. He was made a senator. I did not agree that, there were things that were done and said that I didn't think that he should have continued, but he remained. And when that happened, yes, I did take the view very strongly that he ought not to remain in the Senate. The Prime Minister decided that he and the two others who did not support the resolution should all three be dismissed. That was his prerogative as Prime Minister.
Coming up in part 2 of Untold Stories, The Virtuous Rebel, Mario finally addresses the Helene affair. Mario and Kenny Anthony part ways, and Mario graduates to the office of Chief Justice.
The fool has never been